He did not experience any fading or returning energies. As he exhaled his final breath, he was overwhelmed by an immense, unfathomable brightness. He was suddenly in the midst of heaven. Imagine Don's joy as he takes in the stunning scene. Consider an astronomical version of Coachella. A gigantic crowd. In heavenly logistics, being in front of a shining gate renders distance unimportant. Jesus is obviously absent from the celestial procession that is forming around him, but there are many familiar faces. In Don's funny words, they are his celestial welcoming committee. Don fondly depicts Grandpa Joe Culbeth as having a big banana nose and a shock of white hair, and he proudly stands in the front. Their embrace reflects an unparalleled warm reunion. Set aside your fears about getting there. The joy of being reunited is more important. The powerful persona from Don's youth exploits what the ambulance carries on as Grandpa, who suffered a heart attack himself. You can figure out why Grandpa is in charge as well as I can. Perhaps it's because Don was present when he died. However, the parade of familiar faces continues. There are many kisses, embraces, and handshakes, and Don is relishing the outpouring of affection. Don's childhood friend Mike Wood, who introduced him to Christianity in Sunday school, is a special guest at this celestial welcoming celebration. Mike was murdered in an automobile accident when he was 19 years old. He was a fantastic athlete and a kind man all around. Despite Don's anguish at his earthly death, the celestial reunion demonstrates that love prevails in the end. Don's departure brings an end to the wonderful journey to the other side, which was filled with embraces, excitement, and a greeting committee that outshone any earthly celebration. Who knew paradise would be a place filled with familiar faces and love? If this summary doesn't pique your interest in reading the book, I'm not sure what else I can say. Don appeared to be in serious emotional suffering. According to witnesses at Mike's funeral, we were all left wondering why someone as religious as Mike had to be taken away while tears flowed. Even in the years that followed, Don couldn't get rid of the sorrow and loss. Even while Mike was not a constant source of sadness for Don, it returned whenever he reflected. The story took a heartwarming turn, however. When Don landed in paradise, Mike stood at his side, his enthusiasm palpable as he greeted Don with affection. The once dominant grief and loss were reduced in this celestial region. Don couldn't figure out what was making Mike so happy, but the pure joy of being there distracted him from his troubles. For him, the experience was simply fantastic. A multiplicity of celestial beings met Don by name and with open arms. Their beautiful features exuded a sense of calm that could not be described on earth. The denizens of this alien place were so vibrant that they appeared to defy time. Don chose to describe the experience using worldly metaphors to make it obvious, despite the fact that it was timeless. Some of the attendees were acquainted, including Don's great-grandfather and Barry Wilson, a high school classmate who died in a tragic accident. Their embraces were filled with immeasurable delight as the assembled chanted thanks to God and rejoiced at Don's entry into the celestial communion. Two of the professors who had taught Don about Jesus were present at the celestial meeting. Despite the fact that they had never met on Earth, Don felt a strong connection with these people due to the vast range of ages represented. Don struggled to express his feelings about this incredible experience. The angelic reunion was filled with pleasure, delight, warmth, and bliss that words cannot explain. Despite the lengthy hours of caressing, joking, and thanking, Don was entirely immersed in the experience and showed no indications of tiredness. The vast celestial family reunion that awaited Don at the gates of heaven was unlike anything on earth. Everyone who had ever attended a family reunion in Monticello, Arkansas, brought a little bit of paradise to earth, making it the most stunning reunion ever. Don found sensory perceptions to be a first-rate feast in this magnificent universe. His senses were overwhelmed by powerful hugs, unrivaled beauty, and a lightness and texture that transcended worldly comparison. I couldn't recall tasting anything, but the colors were so brilliant and lovely that they made it appear as if tasting would have been more amazing than any earthly pleasure. Don had the definite sensation that he had entered a parallel realm for reasons that could not be explained. Even more than his happiest experiences on Earth, the overwhelming feeling of being entirely alive in this celestial world surpassed them. As he sought to understand the unusual incident, he found himself completely speechless in front of his family and friends. It's unclear whether yells of happiness or exhilaration were actually shouted, but they were definitely heard. Waiting and expecting seemed to be more of a state than a passage of time in this timeless heavenly world. Looking around at the faces, Don could see how each one contributed to his conversion to Christianity. Their supportive words and actions aided his spiritual growth and made him a more devoted disciple. The specifics of their influence were left unsaid, even if discussion centered on the sheer joy of being in this extraordinary setting with one another. Don, overtaken with emotion, could only respond, "I'm happy to be with you," which could not adequately express his enormous joy at being in the company of people he cared about. All regrets about abandoning loved ones or material possessions melted away in this ethereal state, as if God had emptied his mind of anything negative or worried. Even though they were glowing with enthusiasm, the familiar characteristics seemed just the same as they did on Earth. Hattie Mann, who had once been slumped over and wrinkled, now stood tall and proud, her creases smooth and her grin brighter than ever. On this plane, where time seemed to stand still, it didn't matter how old you were. Every one of them had a faultless, beautiful face, warts and all. Don's memories of those wonderful faces and welcome grins lingered long after the occasion. He could still close his eyes and imagine these beloved spirits who had greeted him in heaven with unrivaled kindness. He cherished the holy moments he shared with them and wished for them eternally. Their expressions revealed a love deeper and more intense than anything he had ever felt in his earthly life as they rushed for him, embracing him from every angle in that initial encounter. Even though they didn't say anything, the sweet love that enveloped him in heaven was obvious. Don was struck with awe and surprise as he took in their admiration. He turned away from the faces. Everything was illuminated by a blinding light, and words were insufficient to describe the picture. The scenery altered as they approached a gate that released a much brighter beam of light. Undulating hill ascended. Despite his anticipation of gloom, Don found nothing outside the gate but a great expanse of dazzling light. As he traveled, the light became brighter, eventually surpassing his prior experience with his loved ones. One way to explain it was as if you were stepping through a doorway from a dimly lit chamber into bright sunlight. Regardless of how brilliant it was, the magnificence rose with each advancement. Don was enveloped in light and felt an admission into God's presence. Unlike the gradual adjustment of earthly eyesight, his celestial eyes perceived with total ease. We can take in our complete surroundings in paradise since our senses are enhanced multiple times. As I progress, a holy and awe-inspiring sensory feast unfolds before my eyes. As one travels along the strange path ahead, one's sensation of amazement grows stronger. Heavenly music hits my ears as if to complement the blossoming sensation. I would like to share additional information about this narration, but I am unable to do so owing to legal constraints. As a result, the video for today must finish. If you haven't read any of the other books mentioned, I think you'll really appreciate this one. If you've read it, please share your thoughts in the comments.